All right, good morning, class. I thought I'd give a brief week 5 lecture, talk about essay 3 coming up, which is going to be compare and contrast. We're going to watch a little video that deals a little bit about that, look at those topics. Remember tomorrow, which is the 18th, that's when essay 2 is due. I know some of y'all sent me drafts. If you sent me something recently, I'm going to try to get back to it, look at it, and give you some feedback. Today, I got to kind of run a little earlier today. I got to take my daughter to the dentist. She's getting going through the process of getting braces. So that's sort of been kind of a little bit of a ordeal here lately. That and my wife's been suffering with some kind of I guess there's a stomach virus going around Camden County and Glenn County and stuff. So besides that, trying to get caught up with all the grades. Everything should be caught up until for this week, except for your second essay and that write assignment, which I will show you where you can find that because there's been I guess some students have been having a hard time looking for that. So I was going to show you where you can find that, the questions and that type deal. So when you look on Blackboard, whatever it shows as your weighted total right now, that is your current semester grade. So as we move along, hopefully that grade or that number increases instead of decreases. You might have received a couple messages yesterday about um, from Blackboard, either about your grade or about not logging in enough or missing assignments. Keep in mind, that's going to happen. It usually does it about every week. Sometimes there's a delay there, but you will be getting alerts if you have a D or lower. You will be getting alerts if you're missing assignments. Now, keep in mind, there is a policy in my syllabus that says I don't take late work, and I generally don't, just because I got so many classes. And once word gets out that hey, Mr. Wilson's taking late work, and everybody wants to sort of try to take advantage of that. I mean, I understand if you're sick, you're in the hospital, there's a death in the family, something of that nature. I will work with you, but you got to kind of let me know about some of that stuff. The problem with that's going to really become an issue is later in the semester when it gets closer to the end of the semester. I mean, really, I can't do anything about the late work at that point because they're going to want grades relatively um, quick within like 2 days or so after the final exam. So, and when you're a late, obviously there's going to be a zero already, in that place. I have to put zeros in the grade book if you don't turn stuff in, whether it's late, whether you just don't do it, whatever the case may be. Um, but the problem with that is it delays me for grading. It delays me from giving you constructive feedback that could possibly help you on the next assignment, especially if you're making similar mistakes on previous assignments. You don't want to keep making those mistakes because that's going to make you, continue to have the same grade or lower on assignments in the future, which we want to sort of nip that stuff in the bud if we can. Um, I've been working on some stuff in the background for the college. They're going to introduce a new Blackboard program called Ultra in the spring. So that's sort of a little bit of where my attention to. I mean, I'm sort of splitting hairs here. I'm dealing with 5 classes, nearly 90 students for this semester, but I'm also having to do that in the background. I'm having to develop about 4 or 5 classes sort of from scratch um, to sort of implement the new Blackboard program coming in the spring. So if you send stuff, chances are if you send it, if you want me to look at drafts, that type deal, that's why I didn't really have a whole lot of time looking at everybody's peer reviews for this last time, just because some folks were delaying uploading stuff. They were delaying, looking at other students. The whole deal with the peer reviews is for y'all to help each other in case I can't be there right away. If you want me to look at something specifically, you need to just email me your rough draft as a Microsoft Word attachment. Generally, if you email it, it's in my inbox. I see it. I will get to it a lot faster than, trying to go through a whole bunch of stuff, with the peer reviews. The peer reviews, like I said early on, the grades for that really should be an easy 100 for everybody. I don't know why folks are not taking advantage of the peer reviews. One, it's supposed to help you become a better writer, go through the process. It's also supposed to help whoever you're looking at, their essay as a peer to help them do the best they can on their particular essay. And you take those suggestions, you take those comments, if you answer those questions that I provided. Some of y'all are just sort of going off and doing your own thing. You're not really actually looking at the questions, you're not answering the questions. So be careful of that. Your grades may start to um, decrease because you're not using the questions that I've actually uploaded. Those questions that I uploaded actually are, key questions, key things that I'll look at when I look at your final drafts. So if you're able to answer those questions on your peers' essay and give them suggestions, you're helping them and you're helping yourself because hopefully if they're using the same questions, they're going to be giving you, decent feedback, hopefully constructive feedback that when I read your final draft, you're basically doing a check mark by those questions because you're putting that stuff in your essay or you're taking it out if you don't need it, whatever the case may be, depending on what the question is. Um, but just reading it and then sort of just giving me a paragraph that don't really follow any of those questions. I mean, I'm giving some folks credit for that, but moving forward, that may have to stop because I mean, I don't know if that's really doing your peer justice. The other thing is, you want to try to look at other peers' essay. You don't want to kind of do the same one or the first one. And that's sort of where the problem comes in. If people wait until the deadline of these peer reviews, that's where early on you may have that those few students like to get it out of the way and they upload. There might be 5 or 6 of them there, and then when everybody comes on that Wednesday or whatever the deadline is to upload their own essay, they tackle whatever's the first couple ones that they see. They don't necessarily look through um, the stack there because we have nearly 25 students. So I would recommend that you look at somebody's essay that you haven't looked at. When we do the SA3 peer review, look at somebody different than from SA1 and SA2. Try not to crowd up a whole page. Look at other people's work. Give them because there's been sometimes, and again, this could be the part of the student too. If they wait until the last minute to send stuff, or because I usually kind of open it back up after the deadline so you can go back and get the feedback between that particular deadline of the peer review and when the final draft is due. Some folks will come in there and try to, upload their own because now they're late a couple of days. So when you're doing that, you're really sort of shortchanging yourself because you missed the deadline. And chances are, because everybody else now is looking, trying to go back and get their feedback and try to fix their rough draft, revise it, and make it into a really good final draft, they're just going to sort of gloss over or skip your essay because you're late. So what I would suggest, if the peer review is due on a Wednesday, let's say, and I think that's probably how SA3's peer review is going to be. I have to double check. I would try to get my rough draft up, Tuesday, Monday of that week. I wouldn't wait until Wednesday, 9:30 at night. I mean, obviously you have the deadline, you can do that. But I mean, if you want feedback, I would probably get it uploaded before the deadline, whatever that deadline is, if it's Wednesday by 11:59 or whatever the case may be, just so you're not, being shortchanged on your end as well. Um, we will talk about SA4 coming up. SA4 is going to be that Respondus event. That's going to be your timed essay. You're only going to have 60 minutes to basically type it up and then send it off. There's not going to be a rough draft or a peer review period. You can't send me drafts. You can't send tutor.com any drafts. Um, so we will talk about that probably next week, which would be week 6, week 7. But that will be coming up in October. And then we move on into the research paper. So we're getting through, right? We're going to have SA3, and then we're going to have SA4. It's going to be a one and done thing. And then bam, we're right into the research paper, which would be SA5. So we're moving along. It's as you can tell, it's fairly a quick course. And if you miss a week or if you miss a couple of days or whatever the case may be, it's going to feel like the walls are closing in just because we have to cover so much in a 16-week period. Um, so be mindful of that. I will provide, as we get closer into the research aspect of the course, you will have a couple chances to get some extra credit. If you want, it's optional. You don't have to do it. A lot of students like to take advantage of it because it's a good cushion, sort of like the peer reviews. Um, if you do it and you complete the extra credit, I will give, X amount of points toward this essay or that essay or whatever the case may be. There's also going to be an opportunity where I'm going to drop one of your lowest either weekly assignment grades or peer reviews. I can't drop a major essay because that's a big bulk of your grade, but I will probably send out some fillers as it gets closer to midterm. If you want me to go ahead and sort of drop like a little writing assignment or a quiz or a peer review, if you didn't do so well on that, that can sort of help your grade moving forward. I generally try to tell students the first 64 days, which is basically the first 2 months or 8 weeks, you want to get as high of grades as you can on your assignments, just because the last 8 weeks can be kind of a challenge with the research paper. There's a couple components that go with that. Some folks do really well with the research paper. Some folks need a little bit more guidance because this may have been, really their first official research papers they've ever written. Hopefully you wrote one at some point, maybe 11th or 12th grade, but even then, depending on where you went to high school, they may or may not have taught you properly how to do it. It might have been a while, if you've been out of school 10, 15 years. Um, it's sort of dusting off the old cobwebs and kind of getting back. There's a lot of stuff now that's online and with technology, with databases and that type of stuff. But we will have like a little online library orientation as we get closer when you're having to try to locate sources for that particular paper. And we'll talk a little bit more about that after midterm anyway. Um, so again, going back to the peer review, really this is how the grade is broken down. If you don't turn anything in or don't do anything, you get a 0. If you only do, let's say you just do a peer review and you don't upload your paper, you get a 50. Let's say you upload your paper but don't do a peer review, you get a 50. If you do upload your paper and you do a peer review for somebody else, you get 100. Now, just because you get 100 doesn't mean you don't need to go back and revise your own essay. That doesn't mean that your essay is going to get an A if you just go ahead and turn it in. You need to go back and do some revision, I'm sure. The first draft, the second draft is not going to give you that A or that B more than likely. Just because you see 100 on the peer review, oh, Mr. Wilson gave me 100, that means I must have a really good essay. So I'm just going to go ahead and maybe tweak a couple things and turn it in, and he's going to give me an A again when I turn in the final draft. That's very rarely the case. So if you're not going through the peer review process, if you're not sending drafts either to me, if you're not looking and taking your peers' suggestions when they give them to you, or if you're not sending it to tutor.com, you need to have somebody look at your work, revise it. That's why you have that extra, 5 days or whatever the case may be, from the actual deadline from the peer review to the final draft to get everything sort of wrapped up. The other thing is, be wary. Some of y'all are turning stuff in still as PDFs. The only thing I can do really with a PDF is read it and give it a grade and give you a little bit of feedback that's in the actual Blackboard text box. The whole deal about sending stuff up with Microsoft Word is that I can go in and I can use the suggestion boxes and put little comments in your margins. That's usually what I do when, you send me drafts. Some of y'all have sent me drafts. That's where you're going to find my comments, suggestions. Generally, if you look at those suggestions and those comments, I'm basically telling you what you need to fix to get a higher grade. You go through the process, you fix that stuff, your grade should be higher. If you go through the process and you don't really, okay, I'm going to skip this comment, I'm going to do this one, I'm going to skip that. Well, I mean, your grade could be higher, it could be still kind of lower. But I sort of give you, the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, as it comes to your grade on a particular assignment. If you want to improve that grade, please look at look at my comment suggestions, look at your peers' comment suggestions, look at, if you send stuff to tutor.com, look at their stuff. I mean, we're taking our time to give you good constructive feedback. And for, I see it a lot of times. I will sit here and spend, 30 minutes to an hour maybe on an essay, give them the comments, send it back, and then, 7 days later, I get the final draft, or what I thought's the final draft. I pull it up, and my comments are still there. They didn't delete those, and they didn't change anything of the essay. So I'm like, why did I spend an hour giving this person a chance to go from a D to an A, and they still have a D? So just be mindful of that. We do take our time when we look at this stuff. At least I try to. I mean, if you looked at your comments for essay one, um, they're filled out. So, and in some ways, that might be kind of my little downfall, because I like to give a lot of comments. I like to give a lot of feedback, just so I want you to succeed as you move forward with these. I don't want y'all to make the same mistakes or make the same grade from essay one to essay two. And, with 90 students, basically with 4 classes having essays due, because I have a 1102, they have their major essay. Well, they had to turn one in yesterday. Of course, they deal with literature and poetry and all that stuff, so they have a little bit more on their plate. But yeah, that's why I try to give you the best possible feedback at that time, and I hope you kind of take it. We can agree to disagree on some of that stuff. I mean, if you don't understand something that I put down there, if you want to email me and say, hey, can you explain this a little bit better? Or can we have a Teams meeting, or can we meet in person for a in-person tutoring session, or come during office hours? I'm happy to sit down and talk it with you. But again, I can't read minds. So if you have issues with something I've, written on your paper, or, about a grade or something, email me and we can discuss it. We can talk about it. So let's get over to looking at this video about compare and contrast. Then we will look at one about classification, which was basically the sort of the 2 readings that you needed to look at this week. The classification, more or less, is going to probably be helpful as we get closer to the research paper, if you want to set your research paper up as a classification paper. Our main focus for these next 2 weeks, though, is going to be that compare and contrast paper. You already have the topics. We will look at those here momentarily. So let's go ahead and look at this video. Enough of me right now, and let's just watch this video, and then we'll move on.
That I created for reading, comparing, or compare and contrast essays. So now I'm actually going to go into talking about essay structures, which a lot of you requested for. and comparing is also known as compare and contrast. So if I interchange between the two, then please don't worry. So we are covering essay structures, as you know, and if you like this whiteboard style, then give it a thumbs up. So generally, there are three main types of essay structures in regards to compare and contrast essays. What exactly are they? Let's find out now. I'm going to be using the books Great Gatsby and Macbeth as a comparison. If you're not studying these books, it's completely okay. You should still be able to understand exactly the procedures I'm going to outline ahead. So, essay structure 1. Let's do this. This structure is quite popular and you may know it, and it is known as a block structure. So what exactly is a block structure? So the reason why this is called a block structure is because it's literally placing your text and discussing them in blocks. So I'm just going to write down paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the left-hand side so that it's clearer for you how this would look like in an essay. So if our first text was to be on The Great Gatsby, then we'd spend majority of the first half speaking about Gatsby and the second half talking about Macbeth. Pretty straightforward, huh? What type of things would you talk about? Well, in terms of compare and contrast essays, you're looking at similarities and differences between the two texts. So you may touch base on how both of them are tragic heroes in their own way. And that could be paragraph 2 and paragraph 4, talking about their similarities. Then with paragraph 3 and 5, what you could do is point out some differences. Gatsby ultimately undergoes a downfall because of his naivety. And I know I've written paranoia there. I'm so sorry I got confused between the two texts. So try not to do what I did where you accidentally switch up the two. Paranoia should be under Macbeth and naivety is under Gatsby. So this is what a block structure would look like. Now let's have a look at our second essay structure, which will be an alternating essay structure. I've left introduction and conclusion behind because they still exist in all of the three different types of essay structures. However, what we're doing now is we're alternating between the texts rather than placing them in chunks or blocks. So paragraph 2 is text 1, paragraph 3 text 2, paragraph 4 text 1, paragraph 5 text 2. Now, text 1 is Great Gatsby and text 2 is Macbeth. So what you'll do is instead of spending the first half of your essay on one text and the second part of your essay on another text, you'll be spending the first part of your essay looking at similarities and the second part looking at differences. So when you look at similarities, you can point out how they're both tragic heroes, but with their differences, you can talk about how their downfalls were attributed to different reasons. And this, my friends, is an alternating structure. By the way, if you like what I'm doing here with this whiteboard and having this voiceover, then please give me a thumbs up so that I know I should be doing more videos like this. Let's move into essay structure number 3, the last and final one, an integrated structure, or you can know it as a side-by-side analysis. So as usual, I've left introduction and conclusion there because that's still relatively the same. But for paragraphs 2, 3, and 4, what you'll find is that you'll be writing about both text 1 and text 2 at the same time. So you can see here how it starts to get a little bit more advanced because you have to deal with both texts at the same time. So like before, how I mentioned that you would focus.
Okay, just quick here. She's talking about the three different essay structures you can use for your essay 3. You have the block, you have this integrated, you have the alternative. Sometimes you might hear it as the chain method or whatever the case may be. Whichever one you decide to choose, you have to stay with that method throughout. You don't want to switch and, switch. Oh, I'm going to do the block for the introduction in paragraph 1 and 2, and then I'm going to go to the alternative for paragraph 3 and 4, and then I might come back and do, the integrated for, paragraph 6 and 7 and whatever the conclusion. Whatever method you decide that's going to work for you, you stick with it from start to finish. Don't mix and match stuff. The one that she's basically showing you now, this integrated one, I would be wary about using that, especially if you're not a strong writer or you have a hard time with compare and contrast, because what will happen is, as she's talking about in one paragraph, you're going to talk about, say, issue A, and then also you're going to be talking about issue B. So the tendency is with that, your paragraphs get kind of lengthy, which you want to be kind of careful of. And then sometimes you either lose track or you will have your reader sort of get confused about where you're going between the two comparisons or contrasts. So be careful about that third method. That's not to say you can't use it. You do have time to sort of experiment with all three methods, I guess. But, as it gets later, definitely until next week, I would go ahead and have something sort of narrowed down. So you're not sort of, flip flopping back and forth up until the point where you're having to upload your rough draft for the third period. All right.
Focus your first part of the essay on a block, so either a certain text, or alternating, so on a similarity or a difference. Now what we're doing is, because we're talking about them both at the same time, we can base these paragraphs on certain themes that overlap, and then point out the similarities and differences between the themes that we are analysing. So G stands for Great Gatsby, M for Macbeth, S for similarity, and D for differences. As you can see, it is definitely a more complex way of going about things. However, this essay structure often offers a lot more in-depth analysis of the two texts. So that is an introduction to different types of essay structures. Would you like me to explain more in detail? If you do, then comment below. Let me know what you're concerned about and what you're unsure of, and I'll try to answer that in my next video. Also,
All right. So yes, whatever essay 3 topic you choose, you want to make sure that, again, do you want to use the alternative method? Do you want to use the block? Do you want to try to sort of do the integrated method? You just want to be careful whatever method you choose, and you sort of you stick with it from start to finish. And again, we will look at some of those topics. I'm going to move on over to the classification essay real quick, and then we will move on to look at some of the grammar for this week, dangling modifiers and parallelism, and then we will look at essay 3 a little bit more, and I will show you where this week's writing assignment is.
Hi, welcome. Today we will discuss how to write an A-grade classification essay. In your classification essay you will put people, places or things into groups, categories or types based on a common property. So, classification deals with groups, categories or types. The writer states the topic or subject to be classified, the basis of classification and the categories of the classification in a thesis sentence. Then the writer compares and contrasts the subcategories of the topic with each other in the supporting paragraphs. Follow these steps to write your A-grade classification essay. Step 1. Forming your thesis. A. Choose a topic. Who or what do you want to classify? For example, roommates. This essay is for college students. The purpose is to acquaint college students with the types of roommates. B. Focus your topic. Types of college roommates. C. Choose a single organizing principle. You decide to put college roommates into groups or categories based on sociability. D. Basis of classification. Sociability. Further, in relation to their sociability you need to decide how many categories you can place college roommates into. Your categories should not overlap. E. Collect relevant information, either through brainstorming and/or research based on the following categories. Types of college roommates. Categories based on sociability. Characteristics of college roommates. Those who love social interaction. Seek out social stimulation, outgoing, excitability, enjoy being the center of attention, thrive around people. Those who are social isolates. Feel comfortable being alone, need quiet to concentrate, never connect with people. Those who society will isolate. Are toxic, ongoing pattern of unhealthy behavior, consistently negative, leave you emotionally wiped out, selfish and manipulative. F. Frame the topic as a question. What are the different types of college roommates based on sociability? G. Answer your question. The answer is your thesis. After reading of the gamut of roommates, I have decided that based on sociability, college roommates can be classified as those who love social interaction, those who are social isolates and those who society will isolate. Evaluate your thesis. What keywords or phrases describe your topic area? Have you placed those keywords into your thesis? Your thesis should fulfill the following characteristics. 1. It states your purpose for writing this essay. 2. It is a clear statement about your topic, and it breaks the topic into points. 3. It lists those specific points in the order in which you will discuss them. 4. It comes somewhere in the introductory paragraph, usually at the end. Step 2. Outline your essay. Ensure that you have divided your classification essay into at least 3 major areas. Each major area must correspond to a paragraph that elaborates the classification and states the characteristics of what fits into each category. Introduction. Begin with a hook, followed by background information and end with the thesis. First supporting paragraph. Create a topic sentence using the first keyword. Highlight specific details that relate to the first group. Second supporting paragraph. Create a topic sentence using the second keyword. Highlight specific details that relate to the second group. Compare or contrast the subcategories. Third supporting paragraph. Create a topic sentence using the third keyword or phrase. Highlight specific details that relate to the third group. Compare or contrast the subcategories. Concluding paragraph. Wrap up your essay or summarize and leave your reader with a sense of completion. Step 3. Write a draft. You should have at least 5 paragraphs. Step 4. Revising, editing. Ask yourself, do I have a basis for my classification? Have I ensured that my categories do not overlap? Have I ensured that all paragraphs develop the thesis? Have I repeated key words to create unity and coherence? Have I used transitions? Some transitions used in the classification essay are the first category, class, etc. The second group, kind, etc. For example, for instance, are divided into, can be classified as, etc. Is my grammar accurate? Have I ensured that my spelling is correct? Below is your sample essay. You can pause the video and study it. Follow these tips and you are sure to write a good classification essay. If you liked this video, then hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.
All right, so again, the classification essay will be probably more of an importance when we get into the research aspect of the course. If you decide to, take a classification approach to your research paper. So what I'm fixing to do now is I'm going to move our Blackboard course page over so you can kind of see what's going on there. And I'm going to show you a couple things. One, if you realize, because tomorrow is when Essay 2 is due, some of y'all have actually, I think, submitted your rough draft or your final draft rather. And let me see here, just 1 second. I'm going to share here again. Let me get this up and going on my side. Okay, so you should see right now, modulars 3 and 4 are still open. So if you click on the modulars 3 and 4, your peer review is probably still up in case y'all need to go back and get some last minute suggestions if appear. So you should be able to click on that. And as you can tell here, you should be able to find your particular essay. And as you can tell, some person There's only one essay there. So you want to, again, like I was saying earlier, try to look at different folks' peer reviews. So you're not looking at the same people over and over again, and try to give somebody, some suggestions um, as you do these things. Let me see. This is all good because, I mean, you're sending your stuff, you're uploading it as a Microsoft Word attachment, which is good. Trying to see if there's something. Some of y'all are just typing your essay in there, and sometimes that's not the best way to do it because it's hard to really put any comments on that particular document. That's the whole purpose of using a Microsoft Word. I think everybody here seems to be doing fairly well. Let me see if I can find one that's some folks have just typed, sort of copied and paste, which, for those assignments, those weekly assignments like the write assignment, I mean, you can copy and paste that into the little text box again. If you want additional feedback, it'd probably be wise to just upload it as a Microsoft Word attachment. That way, like here, um, James, he's not really following the instructions. He's not using those questions that I posted up there. There's about, 8 or 9 questions or so. He just he read the essay, I guess, but then he's going off and sort of doing his own thing, which, I mean, that's good and bad depending on if what focus. I mean, that's the whole deal with those 8 or 9 questions. Every time I give you those peer review questions, there's a focus there. And a lot of times when students go off and kind of go rove on me and do their own thing, it's, I mean, they may be able to have some of those answers into these paragraphs that they're doing, but a lot of times they don't. And that doesn't really help the student that their essay that they're reviewing. Let's see. Some folks, either they were kind of late to get in or because they were so early, the later ones that came sort of came on top of them. Here's another one where they just sort of typed, probably didn't answer those questions. Be careful too. I mean, I realize that you're sort of typing this, but there's misspellings and that type stuff. I mean, it is an English class. We need to check on some of that stuff at times. Looks like most of y'all did pretty well with this. It might have been my other class. There was one point, and it could have been the first draft or the first essay, the peer review. Folks were just copying and pasting their essay, and it just brought this big, like right here. I mean, that's good, but again, if you want to practice, because you have to do the final draft on the Microsoft Word document, I can't really highlight anything here and put comments. I mean, I have to put it in the reply, and then you have to go back and forth and look at the paragraph or the sentence, and that makes it difficult for the reader, for the writer, because you're going back and forth. If you uploaded it as a Microsoft Word, I can go ahead and put those comments in a little bubble in your margin, so when you download it, you're going to be able to see it. Again, this person here has a little bit more when it comes to the peer review of the paragraph, but chances are they probably didn't really look at those questions. There's some grammar and spelling issues going on, so you want to be wary of that. All right, so what I was really going to show you was talk a little bit about that, but I was going to show you where the Dropbox is for SA2. It's right here, and it's going to be open until 11:59 tomorrow night. So when it becomes midnight and Wednesday becomes Thursday, basically the 18th becomes the 19th, this is going to disappear. So whatever's not there by this time tomorrow is going to be automatically graded as a 0. So, and zeros hurt. Some of y'all already have some zeros and you know that your grade is kind of suffering from it. So be careful, right? 1 0 brings you down 20 points. 2 zeros bring you down 40 points. 3 zeros bring you down 60. 4 brings you down 80. You get 5, you're down 100 points. You're at a 0 at that point. Depending on where your grade is now. I mean, if you have a 75, if you get 5 zeros, if we could give negative numbers, you would be in the negatives. And at that point, it's difficult to get out. You probably won't get out of that. That's the other thing that you might want to kind of keep in mind as it gets closer to midterm, which is October 14th. If you're not passing, D or lower, and not just this class, but any class, and you don't think you're going to be able to pull that grade up in the next 64 days, because basically that's the other eight weeks, then I would think about dropping the course and possibly taking it again in the spring, or when you're able to focus a little bit better, because something's going on that's making your grade suffer. And it could be just that you don't need to be in an online class. You need to be in a in-person class or a hybrid class. We do offer this particular course yearly. We offer it online. We offer it in person 2 days a week, 3 days a week. We offer it as a hybrid. So that might be something, moving forward, if online learning is just not for you. A lot of folks like the online deal and thinking it's going to be easy and all that stuff, and they realize after they have a couple online courses all at once that it's not as easy as it seems. Sometimes the in-person classes with somebody there that you can talk to, on a weekly basis is better. So I would definitely kind of keep that in mind when it comes to signing up for the spring. If you're deciding to go, come back in the spring and continue your way to your career. Think about hybrid classes, think about in-person classes if the online stuff just isn't working for you. All right. And these are the peer review questions. Right? You had 8. You answer those, a sentence or 2. I mean, you don't have to give me a paragraph for each one. Obviously, you just don't have the time. But as long as you can kind of give your peer a sentence or 2, complete sentence or 2, then this should be good for them. On top of sending me a draft, sending tutor.com a draft, that type deal. All right, let's go back. So modular 5, that's this week. Modular 6, that's next week. We're going to go ahead and talk about SA3 because that's basically what we're going to be looking at for the rest of this week and next week. As you can tell, the peer review for SA3 is going to be due on the 26th, which is a Thursday. If we look at our calendar, it's not this Thursday, it's next. So you have way over a week to go ahead and get a draft going. You have basically about 9 days. Couple extra ones if you counted Sunday and Monday. So you had nearly 11 or 12 days to get a rough draft going for SA3, because some of y'all, I'm sure, are probably already wrapped up with SA2. The final draft of SA3 is going to be due on Thursday, October 3rd. So if you look, today is the 17th. October 3rd, you basically have, roughly three weeks, if you count this week, to get that in. So if we click over here, I guess you can't hear me because my mic was muted. But what I was saying is, if you need additional information about compare and contrast, click here to read the information. If you still need additional information, go to your e-text and look at these pages. There is a sample student model A paper in there. I would definitely look at that if nothing else. There's some information about classification. I wouldn't worry so much about that right now because you're not writing a classification essay for essay 3. You're writing a compare and contrast. If you want to look ahead for week 3 or week 6, you do have some information here about the writing process, sort of continuing on from some of the writing process from the last couple weeks. And then we're also looking at cause and effect, which again is another thing, another particular rhetorical mode you can use as it relates to your research paper. So if you wanted to read ahead, click on there. We will probably watch a video next week that does a little bit more of a cause and effect. Let's see. We got grammar, parallel structure, dangling and misplaced modifiers. What I may do is hold off and do a little bit of this for next week because I see that our time is kind of getting, I want to try to keep this within an hour, but you can go ahead and kind of watch these two. That will sort of help you with dangling and misplaced modifiers and parallel structure. There is some information about diction and spelling in your textbook and right here as a hyperlink for week 6. I mean, really at this point, pretty much every program, whether you're using it online, on a desktop, your, cell phone, there's a spell check or an autocorrect or whatever the case may be. So you really shouldn't have, at this point, 2024, problems with your spelling. And plus you got the internet, you can look up, a zillion different dictionaries that you can find, if you're misspelling a word. Diction deals with word choice. Again, it's one of those things that you kind of have to just click on this and read about. I don't think there's really any good videos out there on diction that I found that really kind of because I mean, it's one of those things that you kind of have to read about instead of watching about. But if I do find something on diction, I will sort of share that with you. The spelling, I mean, obviously there's videos out there about spelling, but usually I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence at that point because generally the videos that you will see on YouTube are spelling for like elementary school children. And again, we have the technology that, there's spell check pretty much everywhere that we go. So you really shouldn't have that problem there. So again, I'll probably hold off. You can go ahead and watch these for this week. Next week can kind of be just a review, or if you have any additional questions. I'm not really seeing a lot of these pop up just yet. Sometimes when we get into SA2, SA3, you do start to see some of these dangling and misplaced modifiers and some of this parallel structure issues. Going to the rhetorical modes of writing, if you click here, you're going to notice this is where you're going to find the right piece. There's a hyperlink. You click on it. It's going to take you to another page. So you want to sort of read through this. It's sort of set up. This is another like a professional compare and contrast piece. This may pop up. What you're going to have to do is just hit the arrow to bring it down. It should be relatively short read. But look at how this particular writer, Alex Wright, is comparing and contrast. Facebook, MySpace, if anybody's old enough to remember MySpace, and Second Life as it relates to friending, ancient or otherwise. Your particular assignment that deals with that, if we click back, you gotta love internet when it wants to work for you or against you, however you want to look at it. Let's get back in here. The assignment really for this week is right here. I did move it. Originally it was the 15th, but I realized that was sort of kind of crunched there, right after the peer review, then this, then SA2 due. So I want to give y'all a little bit more time, especially if you didn't feel like you did as well on SA1. Again, if you go back and look, I have graded everybody's essays. So whatever the grade shows at this point, that count. Everything is graded from week 1 all the way up to week 5 at this point, except for the new stuff that you need to turn in. So I give you the objective. Here's the prompt. I give you some requirements, right? 250 words. That's about a page. If you double space, that type deal. Clearly address, the discussion prompt, which is right here, using evidence from the article. Again, I did send out how to cite stuff. You want to go back and look, and that particular hyperlink that I sent out, I think it went through your email. You're going to be required to do that. And the reason why I'm giving you some of this stuff early is as we get closer to the research paper and you're having to use secondary scholarly sources, you're going to have to be able to paraphrase, summarize, and directly quote via MLA9 format, and also create a works cited page. So I've been kind of a little bit lenient on that, but you need to go back because I did send that link out. You need to look to see how you cite stuff, what they consider parenthetically / in-text citation, and to create the works cited page, because you don't want to be flagged for plagiarism or anything like that. Proofread your post, right? Proofread your particular document for clarity, grammar, and spelling. Again, you have Microsoft Editor. Use the spell and grammar check. A lot of times y'all are turning stuff in and y'all could have just used that spell and grammar check to fix a lot of your surface errors. And you could have saved, 10 or 15 points from, back, and put those back on your final grade. But I think sometimes some students, they wait until Sunday night to do this, and they just type something up and throw it up in there and don't really check it, proofread it, edit, whatever the case may be, and that's why they're not doing so well. Or they don't really answer the question here. Again, they sort of go rogue because they are waiting till the last minute. They just read it and say, oh, I'm just going to write whatever I want to write. And when you do that and don't address the question, well, guess what? This is how I'm grading it. You're going to be losing points, right? 40% for content, 30% for argument, organization, 20, grammar and mechanics, 10. So, I mean, again, if you're not checking for your spelling and your grammar, you're already losing a letter grade. So the highest you could possibly make at that point is an 89, if you got everything else right. So please be mindful of that. Trying to help you help yourself keep as many points as you can. Now, if you want, before this thing is due Sunday, you can send me a draft of what you have, and I will look at it and see if you're going in the right direction, or I can give you pointers and tell you, hey, you might need to fix this to help your grade out. But I would recommend that you do it before it gets, Sunday at noon. The best thing to probably send me drafts is Monday through Thursday. I mean, I do look at stuff Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but again, if you want something back, constructive, really good feedback, I would probably do it before, 6 o'clock on Thursday. All right, so let's look at the compare and contrast essay topics, and then we're going to end this video for this week. This over. So here's your requirements. Here's your topics. Let's see. So this one, again, you need to have Times New Roman font 12. Some of you are using some funky fonts to make your paper seem to be longer than really what it is. So I know what font you're using. I can easily, look up here when I download your paper and know that, you're not using Times New Roman or whatever the case may be. MLA 9 format, some of you are trying to do APA 7. You're trying to give me a cover page and whatever the case may be. That might be great for your psychology class or your history class, but for an English class, we're using MLA 9, not APA 7, not Chicago, Harvard, Yale, Turkish, Chicago, whatever the case may be. So you need a double space. Some of y'all are single spacing. Y'all losing points for the format. And we talked about MLA going back week 1 and week 2. There was a video. I sent some stuff. The handbook online now, the MLA handbook, I showed you, I updated the link to that. That has a sample paper in it, how to set up the format. If you're still having issues with MLA, you need to look on YouTube and type in MLA 9 essay format and go back and look at those videos to save yourself, 5 or 10 points. This particular paper needs to be 4 to 5 pages long. So with each paper, we're going to go up a length or a couple pages. We're going to increase the word count. The only place that this is not going to probably happen is going to be with essay 4, which is going to be that 60-minute essay that you're going to have to type. That one will probably still stay 2 to 3 pages, just because 2 to 3 pages. Most students that taking this class online in the past can give me 3 pages in an hour if they have note cards and an outline, which you're going to be able to have note cards and an outline for essay 4 when you're having to do the respondents event. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in another week or so. Again, final draft is due on the 3rd of October. The peer review for this is going to be due next Thursday. And here are 5 topics. Online learning versus traditional classroom learning. We've all been in both situations, whether it was happening during COVID, where you had Google Classrooms or whatever the case may be if you're a dual enrollment student. Currently, right now, you may have a mixture. You may have to go to a particular brick and mortar campus for one class, and you have this class online. You know what type of a learner you are better than I do. You know what type of a learner you prefer to be, whether it's online or whether it's traditional. So again, set out that compare and contrast. Number 2, texting versus calling. It seems like now a lot of us like to, or we prefer texting or messaging more so than actually picking up the phone and calling somebody, whether it's a landline or a cell phone. Younger generations probably prefer maybe texting more. It could be the older generations too. But again, that could be a good compare and contrast because it's relevant, right? Both 1 or 2 are relevant current sort of topics. And so is number 3. Number 3 is sort of that classic high school versus college. What's the compare and contrast there? Well, there's a lot. And I mean, if you just graduated high school, college could be sort of a new rude awakening to you. It's a little different, right? We don't try to hold hands as much because the real world is not going to hold hands for you, right? Grades, stuff is due just like you have a car note due. Your mortgage is due. Your rent is due. If you don't pay those things, there's consequences. Well, if you don't turn in your assignments, there's consequences. If you don't study for that math test, there's a consequence. So there is a lot of difference between high school and college. Number 4 could be an interesting comparing and contrasting the cultural and historical influences on the cuisine of 2 different regions. So think about food there, right? 2 different regions. You can think about East Coast and West Coast, or you can think about up north and south. You can think of, Indian food and Asian food. You can think about, a type of Mexican dish in Mexico, and you can think about maybe a similar dish in Spain, right? So you have a lot of choices there. You can think about the Creole, the food maybe in New Orleans, right? And compare that to maybe some of the stuff that you will see, otherwise that's prepared in a French tradition. Number 5, compare and contrast the effectiveness of 2 different exercise routines. After COVID or during COVID, we've all tried to stay a little bit healthier as much as we can, with daily life, work, kids, school, with everything going on. Sometimes it's hard to eat right and exercise as well as we want to. It seems as we get older, and even, if you have kids in elementary school, like my 2 daughters are in elementary school, there's still recess, but it's, it all depends on how hot it is or how wet it is or what's going on that, if they have to study for a test or whatever the case may be, they may not have as much outside time as they need. The same thing with PE. I think I remember when I was going to elementary and middle school, we had PE just about every day, 30 minutes to an hour of PE. Now I think it's broken down. They consider it a special. So you may only get 30 minutes to an hour a week of PE. And a lot of times right now that's inside because of the rain and the heat that we've had down here. Um, so you have to kind of rely on, maybe at your own neighborhood, getting out with the kids, playing ball or kicking the ball or riding the bike or whatever the case may be, swimming, just coming back from summer, we had a chance, if you had a pool, you went swimming, you went to the beach, you went swimming, you had a lake or a pond, you kind of went swimming. But a lot of times it's hard to get exercise if you're a young person. And then two, gym memberships now. Sometimes they're not, they start off, you pay $1 a month or $10 here for a sign up, but over time they increase that. And then sometimes it just becomes kind of hard depending on what situation and what's going on in your life. Sometimes we make excuses of why we can't eat better or why we can't go to the gym as much as we should or did, before. But think about two different exercises, two different exercise routines that you can do and compare and contrast them. Um, all right. I mean, I think really at this point, we can sort of stop the video there. And I do hope everybody's having a good fifth week. I hope your other classes are going well. Let me know if there's anything I can do to assist you. Again, if you want to send me a draft of Essay 3 as it gets closer to next week's peer review, please do so. If you want to send me a draft of whatever you plan on writing and submitting for the write piece for Sunday, again, I would like to see that, before Sunday if possible, because it's only a shorter piece, right? It only needs to be 250 words a page, roughly. So that should be something you can, type up and send to me and get back. You can also send those things to tutor.com too if you want. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a great week 5. I hope, as we get closer that next week, week 6, is just as good, if not better than this week. And like I said, let me know if there's anything else I can do to assist you. Have a good day.